Let's dive into Candle Week. So as I said, Candle Week is kind of a way to honor Candlemas. So in Waldorf schools, this is a traditional festival you may have heard of, and of course in other traditions and cultures, it's called different things, but it is this honoring of the halfway point between winter and spring, and you've made it through the darkest weeks of winter, and so it is a time to celebrate. Spring is not quite here yet, but it's on its way. It's also around Groundhog's Day, so that tradition is kind of associated with this time of year as well. So the first week of February, we're almost there, right? And so this is a star turning week, midwinter. So this is where you will turn your star to blue. So I will sing our little star turning song for midwinter. Seasons come and seasons go, with our star we turn to show. Winter now is halfway through, spring is on its way to you. So that is what I'll sing as I'll turn our star to blue, and it is a beautiful way to honor the fact that we have survived the darkest weeks of winter. So with Candle Week, we have a lot of just sweet activities. Nothing too fancy. Again, a lot of these are just very introspective activities throughout our February curriculum. So our story halfway through. So this is where we see Rudabug, our garden gnome, right? Winter, as we've kind of touched on, if you listen to the Snowy Day story, winter can be a hard time for Rudabug because his garden is asleep, and that is kind of his work. And so he can struggle through the winter, especially when there's no snow. And so it's late in the winter season, it's bleak, it's cold, the Snow Queen has left, and so he's struggling, and he's kind of fighting some seasonal depression. And so we see Thumbkin and Hamilton notice that their friend has been quiet. They haven't seen him in a while. So they go to check in on him, and his place is a mess. And he is just kind of down in his hole, not doing much. And so they decide they need to care for their friend. And so they clean his house. So our first song is actually the Time for Us to Clean song. So one that you're probably familiar with on our daily album. You get to see this in practice in the story. So Thumbkin and Hamilton and Morrison get to work cleaning Rudabug's home for him. And then Thumbkin begins to make him one of his favorite meals, of course, potatoes, I believe it is. And then Rudabug notices, he creeps out, and there's this sweet moment saying, "You didn't have to do this," but Thumbkin said, "Yes, I did." So they embrace him, and then they remind him what this week is. We're halfway through, and there's this like warmth of, we've almost made it. And then they gather and they light their candles on the water to kind of signal this halfway through, that the light is returning, the pond is going to thaw, and spring will come. Yeah, once again, I feel you, Rudabug. Yeah, so again, these February stories are really things that we really experience, and we see our friends and family really experience. Late winter is hard, seasonal depression is a real thing. People can be struggling right now. It's kind of that almost always winter, never Christmas, that the excitement of the holidays is done, and we're just waiting for the sun to return. And so you get to see how our friends really care for Rudabug and come alongside and remind him that very soon we will see the light and the garden dressed in new flowers again. So the Halfway Through song is a really, really beautiful song honoring this. But this is also one that if you are a Candlemas person and wanting to also really honor Candlemas, you can use this tune for a little Candlemas melody. So I'll sing this. So you have the Halfway Through song here. You have your lyrics for Halfway Through. But if you want to use this tune for a Candlemas specific song, you can use this. So, Candlemas, will you bring to us all your warmth and light till it's springtime again? So it's just a sweet little verse that you can do for Candlemas as you light your little candles on the water. And then of course there's a lot of beautiful lyrics for the rest of the Halfway Through song. So already a really touching week. One that I think really speaks to all of us at this time of year, honestly. So we get started in our activities with cinnamon clove Play-Doh. Again, a nice, familiar, nourishing start to this week. So recipes there if you want a hot, fresh batch. If you want to reuse a batch, of course, you can do that. Then, as Thumbkin did, our life skills lesson this week is cleaning. So take the time to bring your children along the cleaning of your home. We have some examples. You can wipe the windows. Of course, you can sing the song for lots of ideas of wiping tables and windows and cleaning the floors and all of those things. So just take some time. Now, if you want also, if you have a friend who might be in need, maybe take your children on a little field trip and go clean someone else's home and care for someone else in these winter months to brighten their day. So you can either be a little field trip or just caring for your own home, which of course is a very valuable lesson no matter what time. So cleaning. The main lesson is just cleaning, life skill. Bring your children along, help them notice, really how to clean a little more deeply than just shuffling things out of the way. Our day 2, our baking day, we're making candles. Of course, this can honor Candlemas, and in the story they light these candles. So I'm going to show you 2 different ways that you can make your candles for this week. We have normal beeswax candles and we have little walnut candles. So I am going to quickly show you 2 ways to make little candles for Candlemas to honor your halfway through winter, to remind us all that spring and the light and the sun are returning once again. So if you've never rolled a little beeswax candle, these are little kits that we have. It comes with your wick and these little sheets, and these little sheets come in handy for so many other things. So I'll show you kind of how to do kind of a traditional candle roll, and then I'll show you how we do our walnut candle. It is so simple and it's really great for children for their little fine motor skills. You take one of your sheets and take one of your wicks and just line it up here. And this first roll, you're just going to kind of pinch it over, and this is where you really want to secure this little wick here. So you can really pinch this in, and this is where you want to really secure this wick here, just like that. And if I have a large group or if I have little ones, I actually might do this part ahead of time. So I would have a lot of little sheets like this ready for just the rolling part. Of course, if I have 5, 6-year-olds, they could certainly start that themselves. But if I have littler ones or if I have a large group, it does really help to kind of prepare this. So then our next step is just rolling. And if you hold one side, you can really just push and roll. And so your children can just roll these little candles all the way up. And you want to give a nice little push at the end to kind of secure that little end. And then you have a little candle, and it's just super sweet. And then of course you can trim this wick just like this. And there you are, a little beeswax candle. Just, yeah, it's really simple, just a nice roll, and you can use this for your little celebration. Now for our walnut candles, we'll be using the same beeswax sheets, but I'll show you, we'll be using a little bit different wick. Now with walnut candles, typically you will pour hot wax into a walnut candle to make it, but I always try to figure out ways that we can use things that are a little safer for children, especially when you have a lot of kids yourself or in a group setting. I try to avoid hot wax when possible. Of course, if you have older children, you can certainly do that, but this is a really easy way to make a walnut candle without having to get the hot wax boiler out. So here's a little example of it finished. It is very sweet. They light beautifully. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your little candle wax sheet and you're gonna place a little bit in the bottom here. And then if you have a February kit, or if you want to look on our website, we have this kind of wick. So this is the wick we're going to use for our walnut candles. It has this metal base, and this is a stiff wick. It's not like floppy like the other one. And we're going to place this down in here, and we're going to push that little metal part right into the wax that we just put. And then we are just going to surround this with more pieces. So your children can just rip and push wax all around, and you want to just make sure that that wick is nicely supported with your wax. Get this all in here, and then you'll just repeat this until it looks just like this, nice and full. Press it down nicely, and then these float really easily. So if you see back on our, let me open this up again. If you see here, you can see in your book that I just put these in little bowls, or you could go out to a pond and put these on the water if you'd like, but these work really well. You light them on the water, and it's just a really special thing to do to honor this halfway through point as we're all eagerly awaiting the return of spring. So 2 different ways you can roll candles, you can make candles. These walnut candles are very traditional for this time of year, and there's just an easy way you can do that without pouring hot wax and with some wax you might already have on hand. So little activity for your Candlemas week. Then, as we open up back to baking day, we have festival bread. And this one is fun because you can do your festival bread in the shape of a sun to remind us that the sun will return. So this is a little example, and I love doing this one with kids because they each get a little roll that they can put around the big loaf. So I would be kneading this bigger part. So I cut the dough in half, and then I cut one half into all the little rolls for the kids, and then I do the big one, and we're all kneading and making our bread together. And then here you'll see I'll put mine in the middle, and then they each tuck their little roll around the little sunshine, and it is very sweet. Now, if you want another book to go with this, Sun Bread is kind of where this idea and this picture of bread in the shape of a sun came from. So if you want to look up the book Sun Bread, it is kind of a similar story about it's cold and everyone's waiting for the sun to return. So it's a sweet one if you want to look up that. But we're going to honor the return, the hopeful return of the sun with our sun bread here, our festival bread. And you can just do the little sun rays in little rolls, or you can twist them. You can make a little face however you want. It's just a really sweet one. And if you glaze it and put hot butter on it when it comes out of the oven, it's super, super yummy. And then our painting day is going to be a familiar painting day if you just went through January. So our morning instruction, we're just going to offer some beeswax crayons. Again, simple, introspective, child-led. Just put out some nice crayons, put out some paper, let them explore those. And then we're going to be doing ice painting again. So if you did that just previously in Ice Week, we're going to do this again because kids tend to enjoy this. So this is one, make a little note that you'll need to prepare the day ahead of time. So on your baking day, be sure to mix up paints and put those in the freezer. And in January, I like to do red and blue to make that kind of cool purple for ice skating. But in this, for February, I like to do yellow and blue, because as those combine, we get green. So it's this kind of promise of the green of spring. And what I love is you can start with blue, and then that little frozen yellow can kind of be like your candle that you put on the water. And then you can see it go on the water and start to melt into green. And so it's just kind of a different way you can use the same activity with a different story so that it kind of gives it a fresh, new interest for the children. Because of course, last time we were ice skating, but this time we're placing our candles on the water, and we see a different thing happen with our colors, and it just changes the experience a little bit. So another sweet one, and again, supplies you'll probably already have on hand if you did ice painting in January. All right, that is Candle Week. Any quick questions on Candle Week before I get ready for Chocolate Week? I'm gonna take a sip while I see if anyone has any questions. Oh, a little question. Any tips for keeping the popsicle sticks up in the ice cube for painting? Yes, that part is tricky, right? So I actually do have a few tips. When you put your paint in the tray, and put your popsicle sticks in, what I actually do, there's a few tips. You can use foil. Someone just said you can wrap it in foil and then place your popsicle sticks in. Similarly, you can wrap it with plastic wrap and place your popsicle sticks in through that. Or I have also used tape. So I'll like put a piece of tape on one side and put my popsicle sticks in, and then kind of hold those in place with 2 pieces of tape. So you can use foil, plastic wrap, or tape to kind of get those to stay as upright as possible, because otherwise they do just kind of flop, and it can be tricky to get them to be upright. So you want to just kind of help support them with tape, foil, plastic wrap, or even rubber bands might work, just something else there to kind of guide that stick upwards so that they are generally pointing up. You're welcome. Thank you for the question. That was actually a great question.